Module 4, Responsibility. It might come as a bit of a surprise, but promises paint a simple picture of what we mean by responsibility in the interactions between agents. The explanation follows on from our understanding of services. If a promise is not kept, or if a service is not delivered, who is responsible? Who's to blame? The concept of blame is interesting in its own right, and we'll see both what it is and why it's largely futile. So who is most responsible for the successful outcomes, assuming that promises are kept? The key to answering this question lies in the promises themselves, and the knowledge that all agents are autonomous by default. Remember the principle of autonomy. No agent can make or keep a promise on behalf of any other than itself. In other words, agents have to keep their own promises. That's the only control they have in a cooperation. Imposing on other agents, including blaming them, is likely to be ineffective. Let's recap the basic promises in the acceptance loop. A promise binding involves a plus or offer promise and a minus or acceptance promise. We remember also that promises are not guarantees. No agent will necessarily be able or willing to keep its offer promise even if it was offered in good faith. Similarly, a client may not accept the outcome offered by the provider and still blame the provider for not delivering an acceptable result. Nonetheless, we may have to rely on service outcomes. We can define what we mean by outcome as being fulfilled when the client accepts the service. A pragmatic approach to responsibility, then, is about two things: which agent cares the most about the outcome, and which agent has the final responsibility to act to secure it. A service relationship has only one client, but there might be more than one possible provider to choose from. In other words, there may be redundancy in the service provision. The client may choose one of the service providers in favor of the other by accepting its offer alone. If that provider doesn't work out, the client can still accept the other offer by renegotiating. This is a failover strategy. Alternatively, the client might set up a promise relationship to both to build redundancy into its contingencies. This is a mixed strategy. If one service fails, the client can simply take from the other without any renegotiation. The client is the one affected by the loss of service and also has the final word in how to secure its service dependency. This points squarely at the client as the party most responsible for a failure to secure an outcome. So, there are two situations to consider. If you like, how many ways are there for a client to change a light bulb? Either there is only one provider and the agent may or may not be able to choose, or there are several alternatives and the agent can choose between them. In either case, the client can't force the service to keep its promise. A broken bulb is simply a broken bulb. Similarly, the server can't force the client to accept the outcome it tries to deliver. It can't switch itself on. So the only possibility to choose an outcome always lies with the client, who also has the maximum stake in the outcome. Again, the client is responsible. The only agent that can act differently to secure the outcome is the client itself. If the light doesn't work, we could use another light, or change the light bulb. Blaming the light bulb is of secondary interest, as it doesn't help to secure the outcome in any way, and there's no lesson learned by punishing the light bulb. In practice, then, clients blame services as a knee-jerk last resort because they didn't fulfill their own responsibilities in securing an outcome. Blame is an imposition to deflect from one's own responsibility, and we know impositions are usually ineffective. This observation about responsibility might sound unconventional, but it's the only possible answer that makes sense for autonomous agents. It can be generalized to longer service delivery chains in a basic rule, which we call the downstream principle. The downstream principle says that the farther downstream, i.e., the closer to the outcome an agent is, the more responsibility it has for obtaining the outcome itself. Server sources are the least responsible, intermediaries are slightly more responsible, but clients are the most responsible. A single point of failure points to a single point of responsibility. It's an opportunity to build a system more robustly. So responsibility is not about laying blame, and it's not about moral issues. It's simply a pragmatic consequence of the rules of cause and effect between independent agents. Naively, in a world of Newtonian force, we're used to thinking of cause as being upstream and flowing downstream. But in a world of autonomous agents, the receivers must give permission to accept an outcome. If you don't turn on the TV, you won't catch the news. Downstream always has the final word.